Cybersecurity depends on vigilance as much as technology, and two of the most enduring safeguards in any organization are its anti-malware defenses and its technical vulnerability management program. Annexes A.8.7 and A.8.8 of ISO/IEC 27001 anchor these practices as foundational elements of prevention. Anti-malware controls act as the first line of defense, detecting and blocking malicious code before it can spread. Vulnerability management complements that by finding and fixing weaknesses before attackers exploit them. One defends against what is known, the other against what is possible. ISO pairs them to remind organizations that real resilience is continuous, not the result of a single deployment or patch cycle, but an ongoing process of monitoring, updating, and learning from new threats. Annex A.8.7 defines the scope for anti-malware protection. It requires organizations to deploy protective measures against all forms of malicious software, viruses, worms, ransomware, spyware, and trojans across every relevant device and service. These protections must cover detection, prevention, and recovery, extending from individual endpoints to servers, email gateways, and even mobile devices. The intent is to build a multi-layered defense that not only prevents infection, but also contains any incidents that slip through. Anti-malware safeguards tie directly into broader incident detection and response processes so that malware events trigger immediate investigation rather than silent failures. Modern malware delivery has grown far more deceptive than the self-replicating code of past decades. Phishing emails remain the leading vector, embedding malicious attachments or links that masquerade as routine communications. Drive-by downloads from compromised websites exploit browser vulnerabilities to install payloads silently. Removable media and shared network drives spread infection between users who trust local devices more than the internet. Supply chain compromises, malicious updates delivered through trusted software vendors, now represent one of the most sophisticated attack forms. Understanding these routes helps organizations tailor their anti-malware strategies to today's multi-channel threat landscape. Effective defense relies on a blend of old and new techniques. Signature-based detection remains the baseline, providing fast identification of known malware families. Behavioral and heuristic analysis extends coverage to unknown or polymorphic variants by analyzing activity patterns rather than static code. Sandboxing isolates suspicious files, allowing them to execute safely in controlled environments before release. Automatic updates ensure both signatures and engines remain current, closing the window between discovery and protection. When combined, these layers offer both precision against established threats and adaptability against emerging ones. Operational discipline keeps these technologies effective over time. Centralized dashboards track anti-malware status across every endpoint and server, ensuring that agents stay active and up to date. Regular scans of critical systems catch dormant infections that evade real-time protection. Logs and alerts feed into the organization's Security Information and Event Management (SIEM) platform, allowing analysts to correlate malware detections with broader attack campaigns. Response playbooks specify exactly how to isolate, clean, and recover affected systems according to the malware type. These operational routines transform automated tools into an integrated defensive ecosystem. Auditors reviewing A.8.7 compliance look for evidence that malware defenses are not only deployed but actively managed. A written anti-malware policy should define objectives, responsibilities, and scope of protection. Coverage reports demonstrate that every endpoint, server, and email system participates in the defense network. Incident logs show how detections were handled and resolved, while vendor update records prove that signature databases and scanning engines remain current. This combination of policy, evidence, and operational data shows that malware control is institutionalized rather than reactive. When anti-malware controls fail, the results can be swift and devastating. Entire organizations have been crippled by ransomware outbreaks that started on a single unprotected server. Systems running outdated signature databases allow infections to spread silently for weeks before detection. Users who disable endpoint agents, either intentionally or due to performance complaints, create blind spots in enterprise visibility. Even sophisticated email filters have been bypassed by malicious macros disguised as business forms. Each example underscores that complacency, not technology, is often the real vulnerability. A disciplined anti-malware program yields measurable benefits beyond simple infection prevention. Infection rates decline sharply when coverage is comprehensive and current. Early behavioral detection shortens dwell time for targeted malware, limiting damage before data is encrypted or exfiltrated. Integrating malware telemetry into broader threat intelligence feeds improves situational awareness across the organization and its supply chain. Perhaps most importantly, stakeholders gain confidence that the organization maintains basic cyber hygiene, the non-negotiable foundation of every mature security posture. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Annex A.8 expands the defensive perimeter from malicious code to the weaknesses that malicious actors exploit. Technical vulnerability management is the systematic process of discovering, evaluating, and remediating flaws before they are used against the organization. While anti-malware focuses on blocking harmful code, vulnerability management focuses on closing the doors that allow that code to enter. ISO emphasizes that both must operate continuously and in tandem. Patching a weakness once is not enough. New vulnerabilities appear daily as software evolves, systems are updated, and threat actors find novel attack paths. A resilient organization treats vulnerability management as an ongoing cycle of awareness, assessment, and action, not a periodic project. The scope of A.8.8 encompasses every system, application, and device that could expose the organization to risk. The process begins with identification, using a combination of automated scanning and manual analysis to detect weaknesses in infrastructure, operating systems, and software. Application scanning tools analyze web apps and APIs for flaws such as injection or misconfiguration. Penetration testing adds depth by simulating real-world attack methods to uncover exposures that scanners may miss. Organizations must also monitor external sources of intelligence, vendor advisories, CVE feeds, mailing lists, and information-sharing networks to detect emerging risks. Some mature programs go further, offering bug bounty or responsible disclosure channels that allow ethical hackers to report vulnerabilities safely and directly. Prioritization forms the heart of effective vulnerability management. Not every flaw carries equal weight. Some threaten the entire enterprise, while others pose minimal risk. ISO encourages a risk-based approach that combines technical severity, asset criticality, and exploitability. Severity is often scored using frameworks like CVSS, but these scores must be contextualized. A medium severity flaw on a public-facing server may outrank a critical flaw on an isolated lab system. The existence of active exploits in the wild accelerates priority even further. Organizations should define clear deadlines for remediation based on these tiers, such as 24 hours for critical vulnerabilities and 30 days for lower-risk ones, ensuring consistent response expectations across teams. Remediation may take many forms, all of which must be deliberate and documented. The most direct approach is patching, applying vendor-issued updates or version upgrades that correct the flaw. When immediate patching is not possible, configuration changes, such as disabling vulnerable services or tightening permissions, can reduce exposure. Isolation strategies, like segmenting or sandboxing affected systems, can also limit risk while awaiting a permanent fix. In rare cases, management may formally accept residual risk after careful analysis, but such decisions must be justified in writing and reviewed periodically. This disciplined structure keeps accountability tied to both technical and managerial levels. Auditors evaluating A.8.8 compliance expect evidence that this process is formalized, repeatable, and aligned with the organization's risk tolerance. Documentation should include a vulnerability management policy outlining frequency of scans, prioritization logic, and responsibilities. Recent scan reports should list identified vulnerabilities along with their remediation status and target dates. Risk registers must reflect the incorporation of these findings, showing that vulnerabilities translate into tracked, managed risks. Closure records, patch notes, verification tests, or screenshots demonstrate that fixes were applied successfully. Together, these artifacts confirm that vulnerabilities are not only found, but resolved with traceable accountability.
The consequences of weak vulnerability management are evident in nearly every major breach reported over the past decade. High-profile attacks often exploit flaws that were known and patchable long before the incident. Unpatched servers running outdated software become easy entry points for ransomware and data theft. Unsupported systems left in production create permanent holes no security control can compensate for. Some organizations accept vulnerabilities without proper justification, turning risk acceptance into negligence. Others apply patches inconsistently across regions or business units, leaving unpredictable gaps. These failures highlight that technical debt quickly becomes security debt, and the longer it accumulates, the more expensive it is to pay.
Different industries face distinctive challenges and timelines in managing vulnerabilities. Financial institutions often operate under mandates requiring zero-day or critical patching within 24 hours of disclosure. Healthcare organizations must coordinate remediation with regulatory oversight to avoid impacting patient care systems. SaaS providers embed continuous scanning directly into their CI/CD pipelines, automatically detecting and resolving vulnerabilities before code reaches production. Utilities and critical infrastructure operators work with safety regulators to schedule patch windows that preserve operational stability. In every sector, the most mature programs align security urgency with operational practicality, proving that compliance and continuity can coexist. When anti-malware and vulnerability management controls work together, the result is a powerful cycle of prevention and resilience. Anti-malware tools block malicious payloads at the point of delivery, while vulnerability management closes the systemic flaws that malware and attackers rely on to spread. Each reinforces the other. Reduced vulnerabilities mean fewer infection vectors, and improved malware intelligence helps prioritize patching. Organizations that execute both well dramatically reduce the likelihood of large-scale ransomware incidents or data loss events. They demonstrate to auditors and stakeholders a proactive, preventive culture where risk is addressed before damage occurs rather than after. Annexes A.8.7 and A.8.8, when viewed side by side, embody the proactive spirit of ISO 27001's entire approach to information security. They remind us that true defense is not reactive containment, but continuous improvement, a living process that anticipates, adapts, and learns. Anti-malware represents tactical readiness, standing guard against the threats of today. Vulnerability management represents strategic foresight, preparing for the threats of tomorrow. Together, they ensure that the organization's protective posture evolves as fast as the adversaries challenging it, forming the backbone of a resilient, ever-maturing ISMS.